All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for showing up this morning to officially welcome back Kelly Krauskopf as President of Basketball Business Operations for the Indiana Fever.
Nobody expected this. The woman sitting at the top of the entire organization, the president of the Indiana Fever, finally stated the silent part out loud. Her comments aroused the entire basketball music community in addition to raising eyebrows. For the first time, the true nature of that franchise's music, politics, pressure, locker room dynamics, and the conflict between building a champion and a brand was revealed. And when you find out the full story, everything you think is true about Caitlin Clark's situation in Indiana is changed. Now let's go back to the beginning of this story. Before Caitlin Clark ever wore a Hoosier uniform, Indiana was among the least famous teams in professional basketball. There is talk about 6 wins in 2021, 5 wins in 2022, and 13 wins in 2023. For nearly 10 years, they were a joke. No spotlight, no buzz, no fans, and no cameras would be present. The crowd weren't filling the seats. The WNBA scene had completely changed, regardless of the Fever. That was the reality. An afterthought replaced a once proud franchise. But no one in that front office could have planned what happened, no matter how hard they tried. Things drastically altered when the first overall pick in the 2024 WNBA draft walked into the room. Caitlin Clark did more than just reduce the temperature. She changed the league as a whole. The audiences were sold out everywhere she performed. Record-breaking TV ratings, jerseys that were flying off the racks, and a media frenzy that had never been seen in women's basketball since, well, music. In the middle of that eruption, the organization had to make a choice. Would they ride the wave or try to steer it in a different direction? That's when the whole story starts to get interesting. Because when the Fever required someone at the top who realized exactly what they had, a once-in-a-generation athlete who was single-handedly transforming what was possible for women's sports, the front office made a move that shocked a lot of people. Their new president of business operations and basketball is Kelly Krauskopf. On paper, it made logical. Krauskopf had first-hand experience with the Fever, having built the team that won the 2012 championship. With all the anticipated enthusiasm, the squad introduced her. But something in her initial news conference's rhetoric raised issues that many at the time chose to overlook, but months later would come back to ruin the entire firm. Because the warning signs were hidden in plain sight. Nobody saw them until it was too late. Everything broke down at this point. July 2025, the absence of Caitlin Clark due to an injury is a concern for the Fever. Clark has only played in 11 games this season due to a groin issue that has been bothering her for weeks. Fans are annoyed. The team is close to qualifying for the postseason. The pressure is rising. Amidst all of that, the internet uncovers something concealed in Krauskopf's October 2024 address that most people had entirely overlooked on the day when the footage from his first news conference mysteriously reappears on social media. During the press conference, Krauskopf looked straight into the cameras and said, "This is about the Indiana Fever. Indeed, Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark are our core performers, and we intend to continue developing them. But I want this team to be a long-lasting brand, like Apple, and a national leader akin to Apple." That was all that was needed, and in just a few hours, the video went viral, and its fan base grew rapidly. Because many folks didn't hear that vision in that words, it was a warning. Such a reaction was unprecedented at the Fever front office. In addition to being furious, fans were also well-organized, noisy, and difficult to ignore. The analogy to Apple struck a different chord because of what Apple actually accomplished. Steve Jobs, one visionary, laid the groundwork for their whole identity. And as soon as he departed, the entire empire nearly collapsed. As a result, when the Fever president used that exact analogy, Clark supporters saw something in it that looked revealing. As though the organization already saw Clark as an element rather than the main focus. On social media, a fan reacted to enduring brands that share their beliefs. Apple became a global icon thanks to Steve Jobs, the company's star and visionary. Another fan also didn't hold back. They say the Fever will admit that they wasted the best opportunity in women's sports history when Clark finally decides she's had enough of a front office skipfire. The message boards, comment sections, and replies all reflected the same fundamental feeling. You don't downplay the most important player this team has ever had, and you continue to pay attention to her. The criticism wasn't simply noise, it was a choice. And someone in that organization became aware of how serious the situation was getting. Because a few hours after the video became popular, Krauskopf's entire account vanished, completely absent. There was silence instead of a message or an explanation where there had been a social media presence just a few days earlier. It gets considerably more complicated at this point. Because while the front staff was being blasted online, the players on the court, the ones who really suit up next to Caitlin Clark every night, were presenting a completely different and far more truthful story. Lexi Hull, one of Clark's closest pals, didn't hold anything when she applied for a Glamour magazine profile. Hull said that everyone in the league was already aware of the fact that almost no one wearing a Fever uniform has previously been willing to disclose. I think there is some jealousy over the Fever because of the media attention and the supporters who have stood behind us since Caitlin came. She went one step further and revealed that teams from across the league had been talking in public about things like, "We can't let the Fever win," in their own locker rooms. Hull's comments exposed an unsettling reality that had been emerging for 2 seasons. The Fever does more than just play hoops these days. Because of the players on their squad, opposing teams have singled them out every time they step onto the court. And not because of the team's performance, but rather because of one individual. Sophie Cunningham took it a step farther. The player who made it clear early on that taking cheap shots at her teammate would have consequences, and who established herself as Clark's enforcer on the floor, had already come forward and confirmed what the entire league had been speculating about. "Before I joined Indiana, Cunningham said I heard it. When she was still in Phoenix," she said, "there were explicit conversations about Clark in the locker room, that competitors weren't just trying to win. They were trying to get their point across." Music throughout the season, the tale of Clark being physically targeted and getting an endless welcome to the W moment has been told. The physical play directed against Clark was so intense that even unbiased onlookers were taken aback. And by the time her season ended after just 13 games due to a groin injury, many were seriously doubting if the officiating had sufficiently protected her. The response was no, according to an increasing proportion of those who were paying close attention. But that was just the beginning. Because all of this was taking place in the public view, the inside narrative of what it's truly like to be Caitlin Clark's co-worker was starting to come to light. It was also not what the critics had expected. The narrative that Caitlin Clark's critics had pushed the most was a simple one, that she created problems in the lavatory. The players didn't like her, that no team could withstand the fractures brought on by the fame and attention. Hall of Famer Cheryl Swoops stated on a podcast in September 2024 that key members of the Fever were quietly showing their distaste in going, that the situation around Clark was beyond their capacity. Tea spread swiftly. Tea was either replayed everywhere or became a part of the background noise that accompanied the Fever into their second season together. Unless, of course, Clark herself felt compelled to make an appearance as a guest on another March Madness program hosted by Diana Taurasi and Subbard. She took it on head-on. She wasn't angry. She didn't behave defensively. She was remarkably calm about it. Basically, you get used to people thinking they know what happens behind closed doors when, in reality, they don't. The colleagues who were there in that locker room also kept encouraging her. After recovering from her injuries, Clark's teammates flooded the floor during the 2025 playoffs. After the game, they cut off her interview. They showed up for her at unexpected times. When the Fever won the Commissioner Cup, there was genuine celebration in the locker room. Laughing and genuinely happy for one another, players linked in a way that didn't read like an act. This is what the media hasn't yet put together. The Fever narrative never centered on whether or not Caitlin Clark's teammates liked her. It was about whether the front office, which oversaw them all, was ready to surround her with the necessary components and devote all of their attention to the project. The difference is that Boston had a close relationship with Clark because the links were real on the court. Level Aaliyah. Lexi Hull was cautious. Sophie Cunningham and other new players were gushing over Clark before they had even played a game together. Michaela Timpson, the rookie who made the final roster, showed genuine respect for Clark in a manner that is hard to imitate. After the expansion draft, Clark wrote comments on Instagram for 2 of her teammates, stating things like, "Cub I love you," for Christy Wallace and "My Aussie for life," for Chloe BBY. The affection was genuine. These were real relationships, but contacts are not enough to win titles. And that was the tension at the heart of it all. Not only the Apple soundbite, but the entirety of Kelly Krauskopf's comments from the October 2024 press conference featured something that many people missed in their rush to voice their disapproval. When Krauskopf said that she wanted the Fever to be a long-lasting brand, she was talking about the long game. Caitlin Clark was 10 years old when Indiana won its only title in 2012, she said, adding that sometimes it takes a generation to reach the next level. Maybe the group had been working for someone else all along, planting the seeds for a 10-year-old somewhere who would be inspired by what the Fever was doing at the time. Whether you view that as vision or deception depends on how you perceive the front office's actual priorities. But this is undeniable. Fans that visited the Fever starting in 2024 did not show up because of a brand. They came because of a player. They drove for hours at a time. The WNBA had never seen payments like the ones they made. The number of spectators had never been predicted by the league. Additionally, when Clark's ailments kept him from playing in ways that could be measured, documented, and publicly acknowledged, ticket sales declined, TV viewership fell. The harsh reality of what Clark represented to that franchise was unavoidable. But the team, the organization, and the brand kept coming up in the top-level communications, as if the person attracting all of that attention was somehow apart from them.